How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm very good, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm having a great day. So, how do you feel about this conference, the Blockchain Partner Summit?
Well, this has definitely been one of the best conferences I've seen in Seoul to date. There's just an unbelievable lineup, and it's really awesome to see Team Hycon up there next to all of these powerful, influential leaders in the space. Yeah, it's just been a great weekend overall. Plus, we have our listing coming up while it's open tomorrow, so it's just a really exciting time for the project.
And how was the party last night?
Well, the party was really nice. The VIP networking was like one of the most beautiful places I've seen in Seoul. A lot of people came out to support the party. It was really good time. And I was able to get home at a decent hour and yeah, get to work today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Hycon. What's happening next with the Hycon project?
Well, I mean, in my perspective, I think the technological roadmap is definitely the most important. We've got a number of big steps coming up. So they need to upgrade to the Ghost protocol before we can implement Spectre. We've got more convenient ways to use Hycon coming up. So there'll be a desktop client, Android app, iOS app, things like that. I think usability is really important. Right now, our Lite client is actually pretty easy to use, but not everyone wants to use a Chrome extension in a browser on a computer. So I think that's really important. In terms of other things going on outside just the technology, though, here in Seoul we've got the Gloss for Learning Day coming up, which I think is really important to try to curate more young minds here and get more people involved in not just Hycon. I mean, it'd be great if they wanted to, start developing on Hycon, but just interested in blockchain in general. Plus, we are planning a big hackathon here in September, which is going to be really awesome. Hopefully up to around 300 people. And then we're also looking at doing a big hackathon at the end of the year in Europe. That's still in its planning phases right now, so we'll see. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. And finally, another thing we want to do is we want to reach more people in their native languages, so we're going to start putting out more information in Japanese and Chinese for now. Of course, we have Korean and English as well. So I'm looking forward to that, so more people can get to know the project in their native language.
Okay, so after OKX exchange, everyone's going to ask, when next exchange? So, what is the next exchange going to be?
Well, as many people might already know, but some people might have missed, we've already confirmed on BitZ. So BitZ will be next, and I figure it should not be too much longer after the listing at OK Exchange. So then, we should be able to reach a wider user base. We've got a bunch of people signed up for both. They're both very, very big and popular exchanges. So we want to have more people to be able to more easily trade and have access to. So it's really great that our first two listings are on top 15 exchanges. So pretty excited about that. Because if it was on some obscure, no-name, platform that nobody uses with no trading volume, then it'd be hard for people to actually get their hands on Hycon. But I think that it's not going to be very hard for people to get access to it, which is good.
Well, let's transition away from talking exclusively about Hycon. Let's talk about blockchain and the industry in general. So,
sure.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the blockchain industry at the moment?
Well, that's a really good question. I feel there are a number of challenges, but if I could pick one of the challenges that we face, I really do feel that usability or ease of use for the average person is still not quite there yet. It's so easy for us to use email, but it's not so easy for most people to use blockchain yet. And we don't have a lot of great use cases yet that people would easily integrate into their regular lives, their everyday lives. So I think that is probably the biggest hurdle that's facing the industry. But I am confident with the plethora of ICOs that have happened in the last couple of years and a few projects coming online recently, with more coming up in the very near future, that we should hopefully start to see more and more quality projects, people using cryptocurrency, blockchain technology for things that are important. And I guess I'll add one more thing onto that. I think regulation is also one of the biggest issues, because we either have no regulation or we have too much regulation or some gray area in between. but I do think we see a trend in the industry where a lot of governments are starting to implement fairly coherent and laws and regulations that actually help to percolate and grow the industry rather than hinder its growth. So I think that's a challenge, but I think we're starting to see the light at the end of that tunnel.
So at the conference there were some very influential people here today.
Yeah.
Great panel discussion this morning with Dr. Sandra as the moderator. That was excellent.
That was great. Yeah, very nice.
Who haven't you been able to connect with so far that you'd like to connect with in the blockchain industry?
Personally, I'd like to start, if I could choose, I'd like to talk to more regulators and government officials, honestly. I've met quite a few in the past year, but generally I do find that there is maybe a bit of a lack of understanding. People are really busy, so I think it's important for us to continue to have discussions with these regulators and legislators around the world to make sure that we're telling our message and to help them understand, because if you just see headlines or something, then you might get the wrong idea because you often see sensationalism in headlines to get clicks, right? So I think it's important to sit down and actually have a thorough discussion with these people. So that's what I would like to, if I had a choice, to reach out to more of them.
And when do you think the average consumer will actually be using blockchain technology in their everyday lives?
That's a good question. I don't think we're that far away, but that depends. I think it really depends a lot on regulation. I mean, a lot of things we can't use blockchain the way we want to yet because we're not sure how we can use them legally. There's some legal hurdles to get over first. If I had to give a prediction, I would say within 5 years, I think we're going to see quite a mass adoption of different technologies that will utilize blockchain. It's not necessarily cryptocurrencies, right? As you know, there's many different solutions we can build with cryptocurrency or with blockchain, right? So, I feel like within 10 years, maybe, hopefully less, we'll be somewhere in a spot where it would be like people will be using email, or using something that has blockchain like we use email now, and the average person might not even know that the underlying technology is blockchain. And I think that's the direction we're heading in. And I think once we get that, we'll hit critical mass at some point once we have that.
And transitioning back into Hycon, what is it that Hycon's trying to achieve with its project?
Well, the very basic principle was we want to help solve the scalability issue. Scalability is one of the biggest problems facing mass adoption of cryptocurrency projects. So if it's slow and difficult and expensive to transact in, and you don't have the throughput capacity, then it really kind of limits the usability of that platform. So I think it's very rude. That's what we're trying to do with our DAG-based approach, and I'm pretty confident in our development team that they have the right people and the right vision to actually kind of move the scalability issue out of the way, so we can actually start using blockchain at wide adoption. Yeah.
Okay, and how about some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Okay, what's your favorite blockchain that's out there right now? Which coin or project do you like, apart from Hycon?
Apart from Hycon?
Obviously Hycon is your favorite project, but other than that, what other projects out there are you quite interested in?
I'd say my top three, my first two loves, so to speak, it has to be Bitcoin. That's what got me into this industry in the first place. Ethereum, and I like the ethos behind the OMG project. I like what they're trying to do. I like some of the technology they're working on. It's quite interesting. So those are my three favorites.
And soon we're going to be introducing HPay. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, maybe Hycon Pay, HPay. I'm not sure we've settled on the name yet, but it's very important. As I mentioned before, we want Hycon to be used in everyday life. So if there's no easy way to use it, then it's not going to happen. So one of the things that we're excited about is to actually integrate a payment system into existing companies so that people can pay with Hycon. And we've got a really cool project in the works here in Seoul, where we're hoping to integrate with a food delivery service. So soon you might be able to use Hycon to actually buy food, which would be a good start, I think.
Indeed. Thanks very much for your time today, Jason. I hope
My pleasure.
you have a great rest of the weekend.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.